What's going on, everybody? I'm Will Button. This is DevOps for Developers. And so technically we are not in a recession according to the experts, but I guess that's the benefit of being able to print however many trillions of dollars that you want. You're never really in a recession. But for the rest of us, things have changed over the last few months. So I want to talk about how your job strategy needs to update to be effective in this not a recession that we're totally not in. So let's talk a little bit about the job landscape right now. We've already seen layoffs from quite a few companies. Other companies have announced publicly that they have put a freeze on the hiring process. And so all of that results in, for every job application that's posted, there are going to be even more applicants competing for that position. Now, just the law of supply and demand says that whenever you have more supply than there is demand, then prices are going to go down. What that means to us is we can probably expect to see offered salaries starting to drop down a little bit because of this pressure. So be aware that that's going to happen. Also, companies are going to take longer to do the hiring process. Now, part of that is just because they're not really certain that they actually want to make this hire, so they're going to drag their feet a little bit. Part of it's going to be they're going to look for the right candidate because they have so many things to choose from. Either way, expect the job process to take longer than it has been in the past. With all of that said, there are really three things I want you to focus on in this job process, because you're really going to have to work hard to make sure that you stand out against all of these other candidates. You know, there are going to be some great candidates applying for every role, so you've got to do everything you can in order to stand out and rise above those. So the three things are having a killer resume. The second one is having an online presence. And then the third is a portfolio of completed projects. So let's break each of those three things down. Let's start with the last one, a portfolio of completed projects. And I know a lot of y'all are struggling with this because you're just trying to get into DevOps. And so you don't really have a portfolio of projects. So let's figure out how to break that cycle. You need to be looking for other people that you can help out, because one of the unexpected benefits of being in this not a recession that we're totally not in is you're going to see a lot of people bootstrapping and try to do it yourself, DIY their projects and their companies. And so this gives you the opportunity to partner up with them and say, hey, you're totally focused on writing the code, so let me take care of the CI/CD and the deployment and the monitoring and all of that kind of stuff that you need to have in your portfolio. And so by working together, you're able to, both of you, benefit from the skills that each of you contribute. The place you want to go to meet these types of people, check out local meetup groups in your area. Look for hackathons, either virtual hackathons or hackathons taking place in a city near you. Join different Discord groups, and Twitter has a great tech community that you can always interact with people. Word of caution though, don't go looking for DevOps Discord groups or DevOps hackathons, because the people going to those are people just like you looking for DevOps jobs. And so you want to go where the DevOps jobs are, not where the DevOps job seekers are. Does that make sense? So JavaScript is huge, right? So find a JavaScript meetup or JavaScript hackathon in your area and talk to those people, find out who's launching projects, and figure out how you can help them, which in turn helps you. One other area that you can gain a lot of experience in, it's highly controversial, but we're going to ignore that anyway, and that's Web3. So Web3's gotten a bad rap, but here's the thing. Web3 is not going anywhere. Blockchain is not going anywhere. So there's people there working. You know, crypto's taken a big crash recently, but the people who are building in crypto haven't even noticed because they're busy building. They're building on the platform. They're not really concerned about what the price is. So that's going to give you an opportunity to jump in, help those people out, And so now not only are you getting to build the DevOps portfolio that you need to land your job, but you're also incidentally gaining some blockchain and Web3 experience, which I guarantee you're going to need in the next 5 years. So you might as well just tackle it and get that out of the way right now. The next thing that we want to talk about is your online presence or your social media profile, whatever you want to call it. And it's important that you have an online presence. And I don't mean that you have to be an influencer. You don't need 5,000 followers or whatever. That's not the goal. The goal, let's start with Twitter because Twitter has a great tech community. The goal is to engage in conversation with people who are doing the things that you want to do. That does a couple of things for you. It introduces you, you get connections in that area. You get the learning experience because you can ask questions of those people and get answers. And then it also builds your online presence so that whenever a recruiter or a hiring manager Googles you, which they will do, guaranteed, they can see that you're active in the community that you're telling them that you want to work in. The next part of your online presence that you want to focus on is your GitHub profile. That is quickly becoming more important than your actual resume in tech jobs. So you want to make sure that you have a GitHub profile set up and that you are making contributions and that you're showing activity on GitHub whenever possible. One way to do this is building and deploying your own personal website, which is the next thing we're going to talk about here. The other is by working with these other people that we talked about in the previous part of this video, helping them with their projects. Make sure that's going through GitHub or GitLab. That's fine too. But either way, make sure that you are showing contributions. So whenever somebody pulls up your GitHub profile, they see that you're active on there and they can get a little bit of insight into what you're doing. Even if the project that you're working on is not a public project, they'll still see that you've got activity within GitHub. One thing that's important is check your usernames, right? And a lot of people don't think about this because whenever we first set up some of our online accounts, they were for personal use. And so we picked the username of like Bongwater420 or something. If you have any of those usernames, go change them if you can, or make sure that you're not associated with that account, or that when people search for you, that actually your professional sounding usernames come up. It may not be a big deal, but it might be. And in a really competitive environment, you just want to go through those extra steps to make sure that, you're leaving the first impression that you would actually like to leave. On that note, anything that you're using social media for, personal, where you might post pictures that you wouldn't want a potential employer seeing, make sure that your account is private to just yourself and your friends only. And then the last part of this is having a personal website. You really should have a personal website for multiple reasons. One, it gives you a chance to kind of like pre-sell yourself to anyone who's considering pulling you in for an interview. The other thing is it gives you some practice in writing code or, building and deploying websites, which is part of the whole DevOps job. So one way to show that you have the skills to do the DevOps job is to have a website that's built and deployed automatically through CI/CD. Also, you want to follow good practices when you're doing this. So spend a few bucks, get a domain name, and then set that up with SSL. You can get free SSL and free hosting through providers like Cloudflare Pages, or you can set this up on AWS S3 Bucket. Vercel has another tier that you can host on that's free with SSL as well. The important thing is to have a website that's up to date that you can put on your resume, which takes us right into the last part of this video, building a killer resume. So when it comes to your resume, a lot of times you're going to have to upload it in either Microsoft Word or PDF format. There's not a lot you can do there except to make sure that it's clean. So by clean, I mean right up at the top, just have your name, your phone number, your email address, your GitHub profile link, and your personal website address. Make sure that those are very clear at the top, because a lot of the hiring managers I have spoken with, say that when they open your resume, they go check for those things before they even read your resume. So make sure it's at the top and it's very easy to get to. The second thing I want to talk about when it comes to your resume is this concept called above the fold. And that's used a lot in web development. But what it means is whenever you load up a web page, what's the part that is on everyone's screen without them having to scroll? For your resume, you want to treat the top half of that page as above the fold. And so you want to have your most powerful statements listed there. And don't talk about roles and responsibilities that you've had. Talk about things that you've done, right? Say, I did this, I built this, put everything on there in bullet points with action verbs that keep them engaged and let them know that you've actually done stuff. And when you're looking for things that you've done, mention how your personal website is built. Mention the people that you've worked with, that you've met on Discord and at hackathons to help them to build and deploy their software. Mention the projects that you've worked on whenever you're going through your DevOps training, building up your skills to get this first job. Whenever it comes to your resume, in this type of environment, you want to tailor your resume for every single application. So what I mean by that is when you post a job, don't just grab your resume from your file system and upload it. Open up your resume and their job description side by side. And what I want you to do is everything that they've got listed in their ideal candidates section, make sure that there's a bullet point on your resume above the fold that says exactly how you did that. And now I'm not advocating lying, be honest, but wherever possible, you want to match your resume up to their ideal candidate section as much as possible. That helps for multiple reasons. One, if you're uploading a resume to something that pre-scans or pre-screens resumes, it does that based on word matching. So the more words that you match in there, the higher you rank, the more likely you are to get through. The other part is whenever the hiring manager is reading your resume, they may not have the job description open, but they're going to be reading it going, yeah, this sounds great. Oh, I like the way that's written, not really associating that it was actually them that wrote it. But we're not going to point that out, right? Because we just want the opportunity to interview. Last thing, whenever you do get to the interview stage, interviews are a nerve-wracking process. There's a little bit of anxiety, there's some nervousness, and there is always something after the interview that you wish you would have answered differently. Either you thought of a different solution or you thought of a different way of phrasing it. Take that as an opportunity to email the person that you were interviewing with and say, hey, after I left the interview and my anxiety went down a little bit and I wasn't quite so nervous, I was thinking about this problem and I realized I would much rather answer it this way or have handled it this way, and give them your solution. That does a couple things. It shows them that you are actively thinking about the job and that you're really interested in it. It also shows them that you have follow-up skills, which is exceedingly rare these days. And then the third thing is it brings your name back to their mind, because after they interviewed you, they may have interviewed 2 or 3 other candidates. So whenever you email them, your name pops back up into their mind so it's fresh again. So there's probably a lot more. Let me know down in the comments if you have other tips for navigating the job search in a recession. Not in a recession. And thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.